listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is January 4th, 2024, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined tonight, as always, by Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine evening?
Spencer, hello. I'm doing okay. Still, my long winter's nap was ended, and I'm, trying to get back into the rhythm here. It's always rough getting back after the new year, but and this is like the latest we've recorded since, I don't know, for a regular format episode, maybe ever.
It's been a while.
So yeah, I'm doing okay. It's been a rough couple of days getting back into the swing of things, but not with WoW though. Getting into the swing of making school lunches and going to the bus stop and then working all day, and I could use another week of long winter's nap, please, at least. If not 2 or 3 months, maybe I would take.
I actually said the same thing. I was telling a coworker today, I was going, I'll probably use 5 vacation days to just take the first week of January off next year so that I can actually just enjoy a 2-week break. I take a week, right? I take half day 24th. So 24th until the 1st is basically what I get off. And I think 2 weeks is what I'm going to need. I think I'm just going to start doing that from now on. The week before Christmas is no good, just because I feel like everything's still kind of busy and winding down and trying to get stuff ready and all that kind of stuff. But the first week back, man, I wouldn't mind skipping the first week back. It's a bit rough. Now, as you know, since we talked about it, we are recording in evening today, as all of our listeners will know now. That we're recording evening, and it's probably going to be evening records for the next little bit. My work schedule has gone bonkers and has basically meant that I'm working during the daytimes when we used to do recording stuff. So it'll probably be evening records, and we'll be sorting out which days make sense for that and doing that. So if you're trying to catch us live, you can catch us in the evenings through the week. If you're trying to catch us just for your regular records and when you're going to listen to us, you'll probably be, morning listens as you probably were doing before. So just keep that in mind. Stuff's going to get out a little bit later in the evening when it comes to content for that. But let's move back to World of Warcraft. Let's talk about what happened this past week in WoW for you, Jason. What did you get up to this past week?
The good news is that we did Heroic Amir Desil reclear on Tuesday, and it was very smooth. I think we only died on Nimue, actually, which was weird, but it was kind of my fault. I was having, connection issues, if you can believe that, and that fight, it kind of does hurt the tank with the magic debuff, so I, died, and we had to reset it because I couldn't get out of my own way. But, no issues with Smolderon with, a 30-player group. I mean, enough people lived long enough that we could kill it, That's the important thing there. Farak was a one-shot, just very clean, tidy, good to go. So we ended up having time to do normal Farak and then full clear Heroic, and then step out and do Mythic Gnarl Root before we called it a night. That's 2 hours. That's a lot of bosses in 2 hours. So that was awesome. No axes this week, which is kind of a bummer. Once the first shoe fell, I was kind of hoping maybe we'll just get axes all the time. I got a lot of warriors and paladins and death knights in my group, so hopefully we'll start seeing some more of those, especially as they keep buffing the thing. Last night, we stepped into Mythic with, again, I'm missing some heavy hitters right now, and it's different heavy hitters than I was missing last week, so it's just holiday time, and I have people who are, they have family in town, or they're out of town visiting family or whatever, and so I didn't feel great about the team that I was bringing in last night, but we ended up getting Agira. It took a while. It was I don't know, maybe close to an hour, and this is not a new boss for most of us, right? But we got it, and it was actually the cleanest and way fastest Agira we ever did. Once it finally clicked, it was we were just dying and dying and dying, and first weapon combo, we're just dying hopelessly. And then it clicked, and we killed it before she even got the phase 3 combo Heartseeker healing absorb thing off. So that was awesome. And like everybody was alive. I don't know what happened. It was just like the light bulb came on and everybody went, oh, right, let's just do this.
Yeah, sometimes it's just little things earlier in the fight that trip one person up or two people up, or someone's rotation just isn't quite as good as it could have been, or there's something off about it that, yeah, you just have that one pull where everyone's thing aligns and you're like, wow, that felt easy compared to what we have been doing. What's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird, but I wasn't upset about it. But so then we had a good hour or so to step back into Volcaros. Volcaros is a tricky fight for our group because we have so little range DPS, which makes kind of the assignments or like the places to hang out during the fight not as clear as they could be. Because, you know, you don't have sort of a natural group of like, okay, here's 5 players that are range targets. You stand together. Well, I don't have 2 of those. And the initial attempts were like not going great, you know. I don't know. We had like some 64% wipes. Like nothing's even really happened in the fight yet, you know. We're kind of stuck on 50% for a long time. Like we had several wipes in a row that were around 50-ish%. And then again, it was like the switch flipped and like the boss was sub 20% and everybody was alive. And it was like, wow, this is going to happen. And then we killed it. So that was amazing. You know, moving to 3 out of 9 Mythic is really not shabby for our team, you know, this early on whatsoever. And holiday season is over, for better or for worse. Obviously, as we mentioned, there's a lot of worse things about that. But one of the better things is that means, you know, we still have a raid night on Sunday. So we will have a chance to look at Mythic Council. It's going to be the whole project for the night. And just, we haven't seen it yet, so we'll step in and see what it looks like. It might be doable. I mean, I think some people will be back. So, you know, we might have kind of the team I would like for Mythic Prog more reunited for Sunday, which will help. So, I mean, raid's going really well. I mean, I think Amir is great. It's just a great raid. It's really tidy. You know, you don't spend a lot of time with nonsense. There's not these big scripted trash sections, or you're like waiting for this RP for a thing to happen. You know, there's some trash, but it really just kind of serves the purpose of breaking up the boss fights a little bit. You're not doing like 20 minutes of trash. And so far, as we've followed the curve upward of power and gear and stuff, like every fight just feels way better with more gear. Everything just dies faster and is easier. We're not running into weird breakpoints and stuff. So I think it's been a great tier so far. And I don't know. Can we get to 4 or 5 of 9 Mythic? That would be maybe the best results we've had all expansion. And I think maybe we got plenty of interest. I mean, again, I had 30 people in still on Tuesday. So raid has been, you know, it's a logistical challenge to manage. It can be kind of a headache, of course. And especially you have a lot of expectations when you have that many people in the group and somebody's kind of got to be the bad guy or whatever. But overall, I mean, I've been having a great time in the raid.
Yeah, I think that's going to be your deciding factor, though, is how long interest stays. It's never about how long you actually have raid time wise. You're never like butting up against the release of the next chunk of content. Inside this case, it would be season 4, right? You're not going to be butting up against season 4 before you potentially run out of steam on people who want to show up regularly enough to have 20 that actually work to be able to progress them at the grade. So yeah, it all comes down to that limitation and how long people's interest stays. And I hope it stays long enough for you to get up there, because that would be pretty fun to get in and check out that content for sure.
Yeah, it's just fun to have something different to work on, you know. I mean, we certainly don't have our eyes on like CE or anything, you know. And I think the level of dedication and competence you need to have for that is not something even like my best players are really interested in. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that you can't have a new project to work on, a new boss to look at, a new goal, just something to have fun with, you know. So hopefully we can keep it going for at least another month or two here of like really consistent attendance.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Normally we hit that like 2-month window and it just starts really tapering off.
Right. Yeah, my past week is still primarily spent inside Season Discovery. I get into Dragonflight and I actually go through and do my dailies, do my weekly, and get that stuff kind of done, knock out a Mythic Plus or 2, that kind of thing. But then I sort of go, all right, let's go back to Sod, let's finish leveling up my mage, let's do some raids, because I'm raiding a few times a week because it's the 3-day reset. We're still seeing epic staffs drop for people. I still need to get mine, and I'm feeling that pressure now to be like, I want to get one. At first I was like, we'll get there. Now I'm like, okay, I've seen like 4 drop. Like it's my turn soon. Let's get let's do this.
Right. I can't believe how many you guys have seen.
Yeah.
Like that's so consistent, and for you not to end up with one, man, that's how disappointing.
Well, so this past week we brought in a new caster, and so that caster got it their first week, and that happened another week, and you're just like, I want the freaking staff, so let's just get this.
They just know that you're going to keep coming back, so they give it to the people that that maybe their one and only shot. Like, let Spencer be here next week, next reset. We'll throw it this way eventually.
Yeah, it'll happen eventually. So, anyways, that's the season discovery WoW stuff that I've been up to. But I was also checking out what was inside the Traders Tender shop. There's a whole controversy clarification thing that happened around people who got 500 more Traders Tender than other people, and people were trying to figure out what was going on with that. And it's the 12-month consistent achievement, guys. That's where that 500 comes from. They came out, clarified it all, made sure people were thinking that some people were getting inappropriate amounts of tender, and it was unfair advantage or something. It really was just, hey, these people hit their 12 months a month late, or whatever it is for them, and you'll get your 500 tender when you get that achievement. Doesn't have to be consecutive months, so somewhere down the line that'll roll over for you and you'll be fine. So don't worry about that at all. But yeah, outside of that,
I mean, that was a bit controversial because first of all, there are some people who like to make everything controversial. They didn't. I will put the blame on Blizzard for not clarifying in advance or whatever that the 500 extra Traders Tender was part of the achievement reward. Like, it should have been more clearly communicated. But of course, people jump to weird conclusions like, oh, the bonus reward this month sucks because it's wrist transmog, so they gave us 500 extra tender because of that. Like, no, that's not why. Like, I can sort of see how you make that leap if you have a certain viewpoint, but like, that was never indicated. I mean, we went over the blog last week for the January trading post, and there was no mention of the 500 extra tender or whatever. They did some communication about the trading post enthusiast achievement and the
and they didn't mention
whatever it's called. Like that. They screwed that up. Like,
they did.
And I will. Yes, let's assess blame as is appropriate, but the thing that, like, it's some mea culpa because they know that the wristwatch sucks is like,
I thought that was
that's like, let's not take it to that level. I mean, there are some people who like it. I get, like, everything is subjective when it comes to cosmetics and stuff like that. We talked about it last week, and I think we're on the same page that we think it's a pretty underwhelming bonus reward, but again,
not everything's going to be amazing. I personally just feel like the watch should have been a 400 tender purchase, and amount should have been inside of the big monthly reward. That's what I think should have happened.
The scare amount would have been cooler.
That would have been cooler, and it would have lined up with this being the same month where we celebrate the whole scarab and everything that's going on with it. So I don't. That's just how I feel. It's just,
I think that's valid. It just gets on my nerves when people approach things from such a bad faith perspective. It's like the developers are really not trying to make the game not exciting or interesting to play. That is not what the developers are doing. At least, I mean, the business people, that's a different story, maybe. But like, I agree that the wristwatch cosmetic is the worst, bonus reward we've seen in this first year. Watch
the wristwatch actually add 4 slots to your default backpack. It would be something like that.
But then the game, then an entire region of realms crashes when it does that. So,
of course,
I don't know. It's one of those. It's just there's something about the trading post specifically that like tickles a nerve in some people's brain, and it just. I have seen like the most extreme reactions about something that really doesn't matter. Like, you get no power from this, you get no advantage over another player from this. It doesn't help you complete any content you want to do in the game.
To clarify, you do not get 4 extra slots in your default backpack. You don't.
No,
that's not a thing.
You get no.
Making sure no one took that the wrong way. Just clarifying.
That's going to end up in a post like, oh, I heard you promised us. We were promised 4 extra bag slots for equipping that. I can't get all riled up about stuff like that. I was just like, cool. I mean, again, I played a game, as listeners of the show know, I played the game quite a bit. I'm all caught up on my trading post. I got my extra tender. Cool. On to the next thing.
Yeah. All right. Let's hop into what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. All right, this week is the Dragonflight Dungeon event, meaning the Sign of the Warrior buff is up, where the final boss of each Dragonflight Dungeon awards an extra item, except on Mythic Plus difficulty dungeons. There's also a quest you can pick up to complete 4 Mythic difficulty dungeons, including Mythic Plus, which rewards a heroic Amir Drasil piece of loot out of a cache. So this is 100% worth doing for folks, unless you are doing Mythic content and already outgeared this stuff, which is a very small minority of players. You should certainly take advantage of picking this up for the week. It's worthwhile getting that done. Even the extra piece of loot is actually quite helpful for folks trying to gear up a new character or an alt. Be sure that you are taking advantage of that as well. All right. Aiding the Accord is Super Bloom or Suffusion camps. We've actually confirmed now. We've had enough rotations for me to say we're no longer on some sort of random different people get different things for Aiding the Accord. It's consistent. Everyone gets the same 2 choices. I'm just going with it now. So you're picking your Super Bloom, because as much as it's 25 minutes of your life you'll never get back, it is the easiest reward and the best reward you can choose.
You could also double up because there's a quest to do the Super Bloom anyway, and
right.
A Suffusion camp is going to be more like 45 minutes of your life that
That's
you
true.
never get back.
That's true.
So,
yeah.
I mean, you know, sometimes the other choice is something that's like, okay, maybe it's slightly outdated content, but if you need like Loam Niffin rep or something,
give me the
you know,
Niffin
it could
stuff,
be an option.
man. I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go.
And it could be like, because sometimes it's Niffin seeking or whatever.
Yeah.
That's like super fast, it's lucrative, whatever.
Yeah.
There's not much I can say about Suffusion camps. Like,
No.
if you need to go use the crafting tables for the Shadow Flame stuff, and you're out there anyway, still just do the Super Bloom because you want to do that for the weekly out there. So
the one thing about Suffusion camps, if you have a new character or a character that's freshly leveled and you go and do Suffusion camp stuff, which is really dangerous, I'm just putting it out there, you will feel the damage off these creatures. But if there's other people there, they can help you out. You can get geared very quickly. It drops adventure tier gear, so you just get like, you know, really nice high level stuff right away. And the rewards for actually completing it is even more item level stuff. So it's certainly a helpful way to gear up a character. I do like that they buffed all of that and made it all relevant to characters that are lower level. I think that's great. Not lower item level, not lower level. That is a great feature that they did. But yes, I agree. I think Super Bloom is just the obvious choice for the week. All right, PvP quests for the week are Epic Battlegrounds and Solo Shuffle. So be sure you pick up these quests before you hop into those events if that's something you're looking to do. And PvP Brawl for the week is Warsong Scramble. And this is Warsong Gulch, except the flags are closer together. There's like buffs you can pick up on the battlefield, and it's really about just capping 10 flags as fast as you possibly can. Really what it comes down to is you do not need to have your flag in your base to cap the enemy flag, which means you just pick up the enemy flag and run into your base 10 times and you win. It sounds very simple, but it can get kind of crazy and hectic. So if you want some Warsong Scramble, be sure you hop into that. Get yourself some extra marks of honor, conquest, and honor. Yeah. All right.
yeah, super fast games. That's the big thing about Warsong Scramble.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but at least the games are fast. Yeah. A couple things I want to point out at the PvP quests, like these are the same ones they had as last week. Like I went and checked and I updated the notes, but I think they were the same ones as last week. So I don't know if that's weird. That's not my fault. Maybe they didn't roll them, or maybe like something extremely unlikely happened and the same ones rolled.
Could be.
I also want to point out that the War Mode quest is in Zaralik Cavern, but awards no Loam Niffin rep.
Oh,
why did they do this to Loam Niffin?
I don't know.
As soon as they put in Emerald Dream, they put in the War Mode quest that rewards Guardians of the Dream rep.
Yep.
Dream, whatever it's called, Dream Wardens.
Poor Niffin. Everyone forgets about the Niffin, man.
Yeah, but so even with the brand new faction, you can get like 1,000 rep from them for doing Sparks of Life. But not for Loam Niffin. They came out in like whenever that was, March or May or something. Like it was months ago. And even from the World PvP Weekly, they won't give you any bonus reps. So I don't know why that's like that, but I looked and I went through the rewards and nope. So if you want Loam Niffin rep, don't bother doing that. Yeah,
I don't know, man. That's a weird one. I don't know why they would just skip out the Niffin. It's no nice. It's not nice at all.
They're too little.
Yeah.
They can't see them.
They're underground. They're out of
Yeah,
sight, out of
right.
mind. I get you. All right.
That's it. Yeah, it's all in universe. That's why.
Yeah. All right. Orstor the Hibernator is the big rune bear that you can get your own rune bear appearance for if you are a druid. It's the world boss that's up inside the Emerald Dream. Be sure you're knocking this out for some 441 gear if that's something you're looking for. We also have Mythic Plus affixes for the week, starting off with Tyrannical, where bosses have more health and deal increased damage. Volcanic, where enemies periodically cause gouts of flame to erupt beneath the feet of distant players. And Sanguine, where when slain, non-boss enemies leave behind a lingering pool of ichor that heals their allies and damages players. Wow, this is actually kind of a cool, great Tyrannical week. Man, Sanguine can make trash more strategic, is the way I'm going to put it, because you actually have to be careful about where you're killing stuff, and you want knockbacks and that kind of stuff to keep things out of Sanguine. Maybe you stun the mob that's about to die, and the tank drags everything else away, so it dies on its own. Those sorts of tips and tricks are great for dealing with Sanguine, which can kind of be painful inside of dungeons like Waycrest Manor that are tight corridors and hallways and can be a little bit tricky. But Volcanic really is just watch your feet. It's going to drop some of your ranged DPS a little bit in these dungeons where they have to actually shift their feet consistently to not stand inside something. But it barely affects Tyrannical at all, except for very niche situations. And then Tyrannical's Tyrannical, and you know what that is. It's just, you're going to expect these bosses to be up longer and hit harder. Like, Volcanic's not going to be a huge effect on you unless you have something like everyone stand inside the protective bubble on, Dawn of the Infinite. And then you move into the protective bubble, and then everyone gets Volcanic under their feet, and it bumps them all out of the bubble, and they all, die. That would be very bad. Hopefully, that's not something that you run into this week, but in general, I think it's a pretty great Tyrannical week, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a good combo. Another nice thing about it is that, the Sanguine heal is a percentage-based heal of, like, the mob's health.
Right.
And so it's not fort week, so the mobs don't have that much health, as they don't have that extra 30% health. So the overall healing numbers are just lower, and Sanguine doesn't stack anymore. So if they're either in Sanguine or not. They can't be in like 3 Sanguines. So you can kind of kill stuff through Sanguines even this week, I found. Yeah, Volcanic, there are those weird edge cases. I mean, you make a good call about the Iridicron fight. There's also the one with Chronolord Deus at the end of Rise, where there's some very specific positioning there. And if there's a Volcanic in your way or inside the orb circle that you need to stand in, that could be a problem. But these are extreme outliers compared to most of the rest of the boss pool. I've had some weird stuff happen with Volcanics this week, first boss in Waycrest Manor, right? The Witch Council, they mind control somebody. And when that person's mind controlled, they can actually be like a volcanic target or eligible or whatever. So I've had volcanic spawn under me from the person who's mind controlled because I'm distant from them. But volcanic, it's not fatal. It's just minorly disruptive. Yeah, overall, I don't know. I mean, I've done my slate of 8 keys for the week already to fill up my vault. Got some 23s done in time. Waycrest, actually, I think it was a 23 that I did in time. We were doing some 24s to start the week off, and at my current gear and skill level and that of the people that I'm playing with, that was too much. It just wasn't fun. The bosses were too punishing at 24 compared to 23. It just tipped over just enough where I didn't want to do any more of those. So I said, okay, I'm going to keep it to 23 or lower and maybe do some 20s or some 21s, But overall, I mean, I think it's a great week. I did a ton of Waycrest Manors because it just seemed like everybody ended up having those keys. And you think oh, maybe that's bad with Sanguine because, you have those narrow hallways. But the thing about Waycrest Manor in 2024 compared to 2019, for example, is all the doors are open all the time. So you have this really optimized route, and you can use the courtyard, and you can just pull everything exactly where you want it to go. And again, it's not fort, so a little Sanguine healing is not going to hold you up too much. Overall, yeah, I mean, I've had a great time this week. I can't stress enough. I just think that, the dungeon pool really landed this season for me. I think these dungeons are fun. There's some really cool designs. There's some cool choices. I mean, when you think about it, Waycrest Manor was always one of my favorites anyway, even with the the frustration of like, oh, my Twilight dev pulled something through the wall or whatever. Like, that sucked, but I still liked the dungeon. That's all does our same thing, and the Legion dungeons were favorites as well. I think the Throne of the Tides rework is actually really strong. Like, I think the dungeon came out great, honestly. Everbloom's the only one for me that it doesn't click. I don't know. There's just, like, I get why they included it this season. It fits the theme very well. But there's just something about it overall that, like, it doesn't. It's weird because it's not the oldest dungeon in the pool, although it is one of the older ones. But it just doesn't. They weren't able to do enough with it to make it feel good to me. But man, if you need tyrannical rating, like, this is a great week to do it. If you're trying to get Keystone Master or Keystone Hero or whatever, you want to get up into that 20-ish range. Man, this is a great tyrannical week as long as your tank has some. Paying some degree of attention to Sanguine and not just like clumping everything into a big puddle and then standing in it while they all stand in it and then it's all healing and your tank's dying or something. Like, you have to be awake. You have to move around the room a little bit, but it's not much of an ask this week. So I think it's awesome. I might even do some more. I don't know. I don't need to do any more for any reason, but if people want stuff, I might just go just to enjoy the process.
Yeah. Well, we have something else that's special that's come in. I guess Blizzard sort of went, hey, you know what would be kind of a fun twist? If some of the Traders Tender rewards showed up on the black market auction house with reskins, as well as some other cool items. And so if you visit the black market auction house vendor, there are some items that are up for sale that people can bid on that are limited time. And they are reskins of some stuff, like, so the gold resonating crystal brings in, essentially the scarab mount from the Trader's Tender, but it's reskinned all gold. It's very cool looking. There is a high-res updated version of Kel'Sara called the Whispering Temple Blades, which you can get. You hold one in each hand. It's very cool looking sword. There's a bulwark, a scarab bulwark. There's a gold-plated version of the carbine, the gun, that's in the Trader's Tender right now. There's also a Marauder's King's Carver. It's like a two-sided blade. It's basically like a pole arm that also has a blade on the bottom of it. It's kind of crazy looking. There's a Gilded Crown Splitter, which is the two-handed I think it's the one-handed axe that is also gold-plated. The Witch Doctor's Guard, as well as the trophies, the same things that are in the Trader's Tender, are reskinned as gold and red. Those are available for a bid on the auction house, as well as both helms that you can see. So the Wrathful Crusader's helm is up as a black and gold version as well, which is very cool. So, neat twist. This is something that I didn't expect Blizzard to do at all. Like, at all.
No.
It just, like, came out of the blue, and they were like, hey, we're going to essentially throw an extra twist into this. This is a gold sink for people who want something, and we're able to sort of throw out some really cool reskins of these items, and obviously they'll be limited because there's only so many of them on the black market auction house that you can sort of go around, right? So this is limited access. It's certainly a cool thing. So I certainly suggest people have a look if they have some coin. And I know the gold resonating crystal is starting at 1.2 million gold. So we'll see where that ends up. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Well, I mean, these are all just vendor items.
Oh, they actually are just full vendor right now. Okay.
Yeah. It's not the auctioneer that you talk to, but there's another NPC in the black market auction house that you talk to. And so if you got about 2 million gold chilling that you burning a hole in your pocket, you could buy out all this stuff.
All of it. Yeah.
I think
wow.
August is when it's going to rotate out. So you got a couple months to if something really catches your eye. I got to say, now take this however you will. Yeah. I think all of the stuff on the gold vendor is cooler than the trading post version of it.
I mean,
I think all the recolors look better here.
I do think so. There's a theme. We talked about this with the Trader's Tender stuff. There's a theme of this like plated gold thing that they were doing there, and they did it with the majority of items, but not with all of them. I do think a lot of these look really cool. I'm not going to pick between them. I'm not going to do it, but there's definitely some. I definitely think the Scarab looks better. I just do. I think it looks better in gold from the gold vendor. The Kel'Sara Whispering Temple Blades, to me, that's something I might like. I don't even play a class that can use swords on a regular basis, but I might pick that up because I have so much nostalgia with the sword, man. that when you buy this thing, these Whispering Blades, you get an offhand and main hand transmog that you can essentially just learn as a transmog. You get the cosmetic transmog button you can learn for both of them. And I could do that on a warrior or something and just have them because they're just so cool looking and I don't want to miss out. I think they said they're going to be up till August is what they were saying.
Yeah, August that's the current plan. I mean, obviously this stuff can change, but usually with stuff like that, once they say it, it's like, okay, we told you months ago, like we are going to rotate these.
What I love about this is there's people out there who are like, shoot, I really want some of these. I don't have the gold to get it. And you're like, well, don't worry. You have like 6 months to figure this out. Like, go for it, you know? So yep. I dig that. I dig that people have time to actually go out and earn the coin and purchase these things. It's not one of those like, hey, these are up and they could be going away, you know, in 3 weeks or a week or something. And people are like, oh, gone. All right. You know?
Right.
Like,
or it's like one of those cash shop things where it comes in and it's like you have a month to buy this and then it's going to be in the trading post at some point. You know, it's not like that either. Right. You got a good, 8 months here to make your pick. I guess here's the question, is this a ploy to sell WoW tokens? You know, is this desperation?
So you're talking about the same people as you mentioned earlier, is what you're talking about here.
Yeah. Which side of that? Do you come to? You can look at this in either way. You can either say like, oh well, this is good because you can just go make all the gold in the game and you can get this stuff and it looks really cool. And I mean, especially the Witch Doctor stuff. I think with like the 100% troll icon looks so much better.
Like it's 160K. That's not an unconsiderable amount of gold. But I mean, it looks so good. It's the red and gold. It looks so good.
Yeah,
like, how could you not?
It's so just like classic Warcraft looking, And I like I like those recolors so much better. And so I don't know. I mean, you could look at it as like, well, I guess I got to buy 1.8 or whatever it is million gold worth of tokens now, and that's going to be however much but like I would need the gold resonating crystal. I would need that golden scarab to do something other than just be a golden scarab. I would need it to. If they told me that this thing will dragon ride right now today, I might consider it. I might, right? Yeah, that would be a stretch for me. If it was like, 1.2 mil for a mount that just moves you around, I'm not in on that. Like it's cool and all, but like I'm not even considering it. I'm sitting on 6.5 million.
I have between two servers close to 6. Like it's
Yeah. Like I do okay with gold, but like this doesn't. If it had like a blacksmithing table on it or something, or I don't know, a rostrum of transformation, even maybe, but it's just a mount. Like it's a cool mount, but it's only a mount. So 1.2 is a little rich for my blood. This is how you end up with 6 million gold. This
is harkening back. This is dating our WoW. The spider mount you could buy in Dalaran. Right?
Yes.
There's all these people who used to roll around back in, this wasn't Wrath, but this was maybe Cataclysm.
It was Legion.
Was it Legion? It might have been Legion.
It was like the gold. It was Legion's answer to the gold sync mount from Wrath and Dalaran.
Yeah, it was 1 million gold to get this spider mount that was creepy as all get out that you could ride around on, and people loved riding around on. And that's what this will be. This will be the version of that where people buy this. And they roll around on it being like, look, I spent this gold on this mount, which is cool. You can flex that way. That's awesome. It's not worth it to me. That's just where I'm at.
And I mean, if AQ is like your jam and you just like want to have a cool, like updated scarab looking, like I get that too.
You better be able to ride it in AQ though. Like just saying,
that'd be cool.
If you can't ride it as a bug mount inside AQ, I'll be a little disappointed.
I don't know if it counts for that, but I'm just saying for me, like, I don't know. The Whispering Temple Blades, that might be worth it. It is the Arsenal set, like you mentioned, like. That is pretty cool, and obviously I play characters that use swords, so that's a bonus. And 200K I could absorb and feel okay about it. This is a really cool addition though, and I don't know. I can't be cynical enough to look at it like, oh, they just did this to sell WoW tokens.
No,
like I don't know.
Can't either.
WoW tokens are part of our reality for better or for worse. They have upsides and downsides, and they're never going away. But like you can make a lot of gold playing this game from putting time and effort into making gold, and you can make a lot of gold just from kind of putting time into the game and not paying attention to making gold. So, I never. For me, I don't look at stuff like that. I don't look at it as like, okay, well, this is the price tag for a token, But
I guess.
The good thing is, if you don't want to earn the gold, you can buy it if that's really if it strikes your fancy. It could be a store mount if you think about it that way.
It all depends on where the token's at. I remember looking at the token during BFA is when I actually watched it the most because I was really curious as to what it was doing. And at one point, the token was 98,000, I think, is where it was at. And at another point during the same expansion, it was at 243 or something thousand. That was the fluctuation of where that token moved. And you're like, wow, you can get almost 3 times as much gold at a different part of the expansion as you could at this other part of the expansion. And it really depends on, the supply demand of tokens and what's going on with them and what people are doing with them and where the popularity of WoW is at and where the cycle's at and what's available in the store and all that stuff factors in.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting to know that it can fluctuate that extreme in those situations. Like, man.
I mean, right now I'm looking at a tracker as we speak, and in the US region, a token is worth about 245K. So this is a real pricey store mount if you want to go that route. You know, like that. You know that you need 6 of these in order to afford the mount. So, you know, if that's really what you want to do, I would rather just earn 1.2 million gold from playing the game at that point.
Well, it all depends on how you play the game, what you want to do. But yes, yeah. All right, let's talk about the big announcement. Seeds of Renewal. We know when it's coming, January 16th. We're going to be getting the next major update to the game, to World of Warcraft. This is coming in with dragon riding worldwide, which is why I was like, if this mount could dragon ride, I'm kind of curious. Like, I might think about
do
it,
Outland
man.
Cup on it.
Like, there's a chance. So Dragon Ride Worldwide comes in Jan 16. So if you're excited about that, which I am, it's going to be fantastic. Azerothian Archives kicks in. Reclaiming Gilneas comes in. The Dragonflight Follower Dungeons. So this is the dungeons where essentially you can like queue up with AI to sort of chill your way through them. So that's coming in for folks. The Dragon Isles Epilogues. So this is the end, you know, what happens next, lead into the next story, wrap up this story kind of epilogues that are going to be taking place to the storyline. Troll and Draenei customizations, the extra customizations for those particular races. The Love is in the Air holiday update. I know everyone is excited about this and trying to figure out what's happening with this. I'm curious. I know that they started to help a little bit with the Love Rocket situation this past couple of years. And I know they've renamed it, but it's always going to be the Love Rocket whenever I talk about it at this point, because it has been for so long.
It was like 17 years of that or something. Our brains always stretch so far.
Exactly. Thank you. So I'm curious as to what that's going to look like. And then, of course, we have additional Warlock Demon customizations coming in, which we've already been PTRing a lot of, and looks very cool, some of the stuff you can do with this. So, yeah, I'm excited for Seeds of Renewal. It's going to be a nice little boost to content for folks who are looking for some more storyline stuff that they're looking to do. The customization is going to be fun for people to play around with. But the big thing for me, honestly, the thing I'm most excited about for this whole thing is the dragon riding, man. I just am. The dragon riding worldwide is just going to feel good. On every character, you're starting out, you're rolling through Dragon Isles, you're getting your dragon early to do dragon riding, and then everywhere that you go, you have dragon riding. It's going to feel really good for people. So
yeah, it's a cool addition to the game for sure. And we are gonna have new cups coming in. There's gonna be I think not next week, but the week after is gonna be the Outland Cup. So we'll have some new races and old zones to do and new stuff to collect, which is awesome. This is about what I was expecting. I mean, we kind of knew, we had enough data points to go, okay, we're probably going to get 10.2.5 in January somewhere, and I don't, even though we've had a release candidate on PTR for a couple weeks, I don't think anybody was thinking that they would release a patch on January 2nd. So, the 9th and the 16th was kind of, likely candidates. And so here we have the official announcement. So one cool thing about this one is this isn't like, this is a weird patch, because I was going to say it's not like a real feature-rich patch, but then again, you have follower dungeons coming in, which is a huge addition to the game. So there's a giant new feature, and like Azerothian Archives and Reclaiming Gilneas, the epilogue quest line, that stuff by and large hasn't been PTR tested. We don't know really what that's going to be. Yeah. So that's going to be all new story stuff and exploration stuff to go do, which is going to be really fresh. That sounds awesome. Of course, I'm really excited about Belemeth coming in. They released like a preview blog for Belemeth specifically and kind of showed off some of the locales and some of the, the creatures and the NPCs that hang out there. And they put a little video of it out, man. And I mean, anybody's listened to the show for a while knows, like, I've been a Night Elf main from day one, 19 plus years. And I've been playing a lot of SOD. I'm playing a Night Elf in SOD. You're hanging out in Night Elf zones a lot in phase 1 of SOD. And man, like, there was always something for me back in 04, 05 about, those Night Elf areas. And this looks like it just hits all those notes, man. It looks like a modern take on that, and for the Night Elves to like have a new home and a new city and have it hit those notes that really drew me in the first place. Like, how much are we really going to hang out here? Probably not, but I think it's a great addition to the game just from a flavor perspective. And there's going to be some new collectibles and stuff. But like, man, seeing like Night Elf kids running around on the bridges and stuff, it just struck me.
It's going to be really amazing to feel like like the Night Elf race has a home again. That's what's going to feel really good. And I want to point out, the Night Elf race has a home again, and we still haven't solved the problem for gnomes. It has been too long since we have not solved the problem with gnomes looking for a home. Let's just be clear.
That's true, yeah. I mean, like, in the Cataclysm pre-launch event, we like went in there and cleaned up Gnomeregan, but then it was like, okay, well, see you next time. Like,
I just want to like put it like, as much as I'm celebrating for the Night Elves because I dig Night Elves, so I play a Night Elf. I'm really glad they're gonna have a home again. Their home got burned down. It was terrible. Man, like it's been 4 years since they haven't had a home. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm playing Season of Discovery, and I'm like, there's gnomes, and gnomes have not had a home in 17 years. Like, what is going on?
We are going to Gnomeregan in phase 2.
Like, exactly. Oh man.
Well, maybe Mechatork's kind of been off the radar since BFA, so maybe they'll get some kind of big blow up in the future there.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out here, because this struck me while I was browsing the internet today, and they put up a little I don't know what you call it, a little video, a little hype video for follower dungeons, right? And I mean, again, I think this is a game-changing feature if you want to learn how to tank or heal, especially, like those kind of high-pressure like support roles where you're just supposed to know stuff or you're just supposed to be able to handle stuff. Like, if you don't have a friendly environment to learn that in, it can be really intimidating. It can be really punishing. It can be really toxic. It can make you stop playing the game. This gives you an opportunity to just play at your own pace and figure stuff out. Here's my I don't want to say a concern. It's more of like a bummer with this feature is that, like, this is legit the Dragonflight dungeons, and none of those dungeons are in the Keystone pool.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah.
That's a huge missed opportunity, and like, it probably doesn't make sense to have like Throne of the Tides as a follower dungeon for this feature launch. And I get that, but I think it'll be a giant boon to the game, especially when War Within comes out and you have all these eyeballs on it, you have all these new players and people coming back.
Every dungeon's going to be designed around having followers, and yeah.
Yeah, and everybody's learning the dungeons, to some degree. So, I think it's a feature that's going to pay dividends for years to come. But on launch is a little weird because you're not going to be able to learn, like, acclimate yourself in a follower dungeon and then step into Keystones. It's actually a totally different pool, right? Because there's no level up Dawn of the Infinite. So there's no crossover from the follower dungeon pool to the Keystone pool, which
could also be cool for players, right? They might... I mean, I get the repetitive practice helping them learn bosses to sort of guide them into getting into Mythic Plus, but I also feel like there's a certain level of excitement for newer players to getting to max level and doing the new things that are all new things, right? And so it's sort of that deciding factor of, as long as these follower dungeons allow people to learn how to play their role inside of a dungeon, I think you're doing okay. Like that should be the objective of what this does.
I think that's a big mission statement for the feature too. So, again, I think this is just in a weird spot because it's coming in so late, and we've had this rotating pool.
Yeah.
So, one cool thing about this, and I don't know if we've really pointed this out on the show too much, but the thing with follower dungeons is you can solo them, or you can bring up to 3 other friends. So, like, if you're just missing a tank or whatever and you want to try to do some dungeons, you can play with your friends and it'll round out the missing spots with NPCs.
Right.
Or you can play totally solo, which is it's a great addition to the game. Again, it's something that other MMORPGs have. It's not like Blizzard's blazing a trail with this. You could take it the other way and say, where has this been for the last several years? But that's not the way I look at stuff. I mean, if they had infinite time and resources, they would add all kinds of stuff to WoW that we've been waiting for, I'm sure. But they have priorities, and now is the time for AI dungeons to come in. So I think it's awesome. They highlighted in the video that the AI companions you'll have in the dungeons will like jump around and stuff and sort of kind of mimic the way a player would move. I wonder if they'll have like any kind of dialogue or anything. That would be kind of interesting. Sort of like remember Island Expeditions, and they had those advanced AI NPCs, and they would have different little dialogue they would play throughout the island expeditions. That would be kind of a neat addition. Just kind of inject some personality into those companions, but I don't know if they're taking it that far.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really great feature though. Once it's in and running and everyone's happy with it and it's going, I think we're going to end up with a really good positive outlook on things. Okay, let's talk about the new customization in Seeds Renewal for these Draenei and Troll. I want to recap some of this for some people because, it's been a little bit since we talked about it. That's one of the later things. Trolls, you got yourself some new hair colors. We have this like very vibrant blue, a great sort of green. We have purple, a deep red, and then like a fiery yellow that's there. So those are 5 options for you that you can do hair color wise, which I love. These are all going to be really cool, especially the blue one. I really dig the blue one. Even though it's kind of anti-horde and more alliance-based, I'm just saying. But, it's cool. Draenei, you got yourself some a new skin color. This is a much deeper sort of almost purplish sort of color of skin that you can choose.
It's like slate. It's like
almost
grayish.
Slate. It's almost gray. Yeah.
It's cool. It's really cool. It's sort of like an alternative to sort of those bluish hues that Draenei mostly have. And obviously you have like the red customization that came in. This is like, it doesn't look like either of those ends of the spectrum.
Yeah. And then of course we have the new Tyrant and Dark Glare Demon updates. Man, oh man, the new Tyrant looks pretty wicked. Bunch of different colorations you can go with. I'm anxious to see what different warlocks pick, and to see all the different colored tyrants charging in on fights will be very cool to see. And then
the Kill Jaden looking one, the red one.
I know the red one to me just speaks to me. It just speaks to me, man. Dark Glare, same thing. The purple one with the green eye speaks to me huge. But at the same time, like they have some really neat combinations here, including like a almost pale beige one with a purple eye, which looks really neat. They have the was it Dormammu or whatever his name was, the floating eyeball boss.
Whatever that boss was from Throne, I can't remember. It's something like what you said. I don't remember his name specifically, but that's that model. And that was such a great raid, and that was a cool boss from there. And now it can be your minion.
Exactly. And then of course the old school looking like 9 eyeball one or 7 eyeball one that is out there is also one of the skins people can apply to their demons. So enjoy. I'm pumped about this. I think people really dig this and enjoy it, and I'm glad that Warlocks got a little shine on their I mean, since Boomkins finally got theirs, I'm okay with Warlocks now getting their little shine and glow up.
I mean, Warlocks have gotten a lot this expansion.
Well, in general, they have. The Green Fire Quest was big.
Yeah, that's true. But they had like, they got a bunch of other demon customizations, but I forget which patch that was. There's been so many patches, it's hard to keep them all straight. But I love that they keep. I mean, this is a thing that years ago, like 10 years ago, give or take, right? Like Warlords days when the new models were coming in. It was that constant conversation of, can we get more customization? Can we get more looks for our characters? Can we get more art on the characters? Just something. And it was always, it was when Chris Robinson was the art director, and he would do blogs and stuff on the website. And it was just like, we have so many ideas. There's so much stuff we want to do, but our pipeline is what it is. And we want to get stuff to you guys, but everything takes time, and art always takes so long. And, they're in a spot now where, and especially I think having the faster and slightly smaller patches helps with this, because guess what we have done. We have 5 troll hair colors done, so we can include them in the next release. It doesn't have to be this whole sweeping thing where like every race got all of these new options. You can kind of just, is this done? Is it good to go? All right, it's coming out in 2 months, I think that's a cool spot for the game to be in, and customization. Like everybody likes having more options, even if you don't pick them, right? So it's sort of it's this angle that they can explore in a way that they couldn't years ago, because everything was like these two big patches for the year or whatever, right? And if it wasn't ready, then it wasn't shipping, and it just doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah. All right, last but not least, announcement-wise, we have Enter Ruby Sanctum on January 11th. So we know January 11th is officially when the Wrath of the Lich King Classic is getting their final raid tier of journeying into Wormcrest. I always said Wormcrest back in the day. Wormrest Temple, and facing Hallion and his minions inside the Ruby Sanctum. It's going to go live at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern on January 11th. So folks can dive in there and experience the hell that is the spinning blades of that fight, and the different phases where people get split and zoned in half, and the floor fills up with stuff you don't want to stand in, and it's just really uncomfortable. And yeah, enjoy that encounter if that's something you're looking forward to. Man.
Yeah, at least the rewards from it are really good, so you're gonna be glad you did it. Wait,
yeah,
no,
that's
no.
Uh-huh.
This is what J. Allen Brack meant when he said, "You think you do, but you don't."
Yeah.
It's sort of fitting in a way that, like, I don't know, for a lot of people, Cataclysm Classic is sort of like the line in the sand. It's like, I was in the Classic until this, and I don't want to play Cataclysm. And, as of next week, but by this time next week, Wrath Classic will be content complete, right? This was the last piece of content for Wrath of the Lich King. There's nothing else to do after Ruby Sanctum. And so, we know they're not going to do Wrath Era.
So we get Season of Discovery Wrath, that is. I'm just, putting that out there.
Yeah, that might be cool. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, that could be cool. I guess my concern there is, you'd have to start from 70 or whatever, but that's besides the point. Like, this is just not. Ruby Sanctum is sort of a weird and fitting prelude to Cataclysm. It's like this kind of disappointing end note on Wrath into what is, for a lot of people, a disappointing expansion and era of the game. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, other than Wrath Classic is done. Like, it's done. This is it. Yep. This is the last part of it, and we know we're gonna see Cataclysm Classic beta soon. They said winter. It's winter now in the Northern Hemisphere. It's 2024. So, that whole thing's going to start spinning up. I do think there's probably going to be a lot of people who are sad to see Wrath go and not get Era, because Wrath was a special time of the game. And we're poking fun at Ruby Sanctum. It's not something that holds a lot of great memories for people, but Ice Crown Citadel, Old War,
one of the best
Max 80.
Time, yeah.
These are classic end game experiences. It was without a doubt, without any equivocation, one of the best eras of the game in its 19 plus year history. Yeah. Like, Wrath is an incredible game. Oh. And I understand that, like, the realities of the business are what they are, and they, even though it might seem like it to us, like, they can't just run Wrath Era for free if nobody's using it, if it's not bringing in any money. Like, I understand that, and they, at least they're committed to keeping Classic Era up, like Vanilla WoW, but we just can't. They're not in a spot where it's worth it to them to keep everything up forever. It's really what it comes down to.
Wrath is a period of time in the game I can still feel. I still have a actual. I
can put myself in my shoes from back then.
I still have an actual feeling about what was going on in my life, as well as in the game, and thinking about, like, going out and collecting snowballs and doing the Frost Giant quests on a regular basis as dailies, and trying to get the polar bear mount from doing that stuff, and like trying to get the Time Lost Proto Drake, time to get the, all of those things. Like, it's still just like I could feel that feeling of what was going on then. So I get the nostalgia, I get the heavy nostalgia. And I do feel like there's people out there who are going to be saddened that there's not going to be an era version of Wrath. I do think it's not the last time we've seen Wrath. I think they'll do more things with it again. It's just too good of a piece of content to just leave on its own. So I think we'll see it happen. And I think we'll revisit it again at some point. So yeah, I'll be excited to see when that sort of comes around.
And never say never with this stuff. Who knows, man? We never thought they would do, legacy realms, as the community used to call it before Classic became real, right? Like, 6-7 years ago, we never thought they would do anything like this, and now it's sort of expected. So who knows? Maybe Wrath lives again somehow. Wrath was so good. I'll put it this way: I haven't played Wrath Classic like hardly at all. I think I got my warrior to like level 72 or something. Like I didn't get out of Howling Fjord. Okay, I spent no time in Wrath Classic, but I'm still sad that it's getting patched to 4.0 and that they're moving on and that there's no Wrath era.
I mean,
I want there to be one, even though I haven't played it. But see, I'm the problem, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm not using it. So why would they host it? You know, but I don't know. Maybe someday. Who knows?
I'm waiting for them to give us Utgard Pinnacle as a Mythic Plus dungeon. I'm just saying. That's,
Yeah, that would be, man, I don't know. I mean, the Wrath dungeons are like a little crusty,
man,
but
they're fast.
But yeah,
like,
I mean, they were designed to be like really bite-sized experiences.
Yeah.
But hey, with like stuff like Throne of the Tides, they've shown me that they can take like a pretty straightforward, simple dungeon and just kind of turn it on its ear a little bit and still make it feel like the same space, but make it feel like a more modern dungeon. So
yeah, Utgard Pinnacle and Mechagon. No, not Mechagon. What's the one from Burning Crusade?
Mechanar.
Mechanar. That's it. Those are the two that I want to see. Both very fast, like very furious, crazy dungeons. With
Mechanar, that gauntlet section.
They still have something that's challenging to them that you could throw a good spin on. But yeah, you could have timers that are like 20 minutes or 18 minutes, like to do these dungeons, and you could watch people crank them out in 6 or 7 minutes. They just plow through the place on a low keystone, right?
Time running.
Maybe
that's what time running is.
Maybe.
Yeah. But no, you said Mechanar, and so if Mechanar ever ends up in the Keystone Dungeon pool, dude, because you might know what I'm going to say. Mechanar back in the day had like your pre-raid Bis tanking sword, the Sun Eater from the last boss.
It did.
And it was like where I came in sort of in endgame. It was a little bit late in the TBC because I'd taken some time away from the game. And like, are you the need King's Defender or you need Sun Eater? And I could not, like, I used to do Mechanar every day on the daily heroic reset. And I never, to this day, ever got a Sun Eater. I don't even have the mock. Man. Like, man, if they ever put that back in the pool and it's like,
first time you're in, it'll be the first drop you see. It'll be crazy.
Oh yeah, that would be funny. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, if they put it in the pool in like 2025, it would not have plus def rating on it, right? Like, it would not be a defense rating sword. But man, I don't know. That would trigger something in my brain of like, if I needed to get the weapon out of Mechanar. That was like, dude, I don't know how many times I did that dungeon, but I never saw that sword one time.
Oh, that's painful. Yeah, I did that place a ridiculous amount of times, like because it was so fast. Like, just they'd be in and out in like with a group that knew how to do it, it was like 12 to 15 minutes. With a group that was struggling with it, it was still like under 25 minutes. Like, it was crazy how quickly you could plow through it, and it was a really fun time. So like I would definitely like to see some like I want Utgard Pinnacle for sure for Mythic Plus at some point, because it's a fun, speedy dungeon, and the same thing with Mechanar. I think they'd both be great for that. So hopefully, like I said, it's not the last time we've seen them visit Wrath stuff. I don't think it will be. So I think we'll see these sorts of things come back around, and we'll get a chance to revisit this content. All right, we have time. We're doing it. We're doing a boss guide. This one comes in from Nimue. The Weaver of the Cycle. Nimue was placed in this verdant realm when Aenar and Freya shaped the dream. In Wellspring Temple, they enforce and protect the ordering of the Emerald Dream, weaving its wilderness into complex patterns. All right, Jason, go through the room for this fight so people can understand it.
Okay, so this room is green. Or maybe slightly blue.
That was a great description of what this room is. Moving into
it's green. This room is gigantic. Like, it's absurd how big this room is. Most of it doesn't really matter. It's kind of oblong. It's roundish. What you want to know going in here is you're going to need to split your team. You need a left side team and a right side team. And you need people to pay attention to the lines on the floor. Yeah,
for once it really matters.
Yeah. When you first zone in or like enter the room, it's not really a zone in, but you'll see the lines all over the floor and there's like grass everywhere. You can kind of walk over them. It's fine. There's two big tree treant mobs in there that are like the ads that are going to be summoned in during the boss fight. Do not range taunt them and pull them over the lines. If they walk over the blue lines on the floor, you're going to die. So run up to them and then engage them in combat. Run up to them and interrupt them. Don't like Avengers shield them or something. Not that my group has ever done that and learned the hard way, of course. Yeah, so that's step one is like, okay, have your group split up and then run up to the ads and interrupt and kill them on your way in. And yeah, this can be a big part of this fight for me is being able to recognize what's actually happening in the room. The stuff doesn't read super great on this fight, in my opinion. And we talked a lot about how mechanics in this raid and in many recent raids read really well.
Well, you highlighted at the beginning. This room is green. Guess what color a lot of the mechanics are? They're shades of green.
Also green.
Yeah. That's a problem right off the bat. I really do feel like they should start picking floor colors for rooms to be darker shades. And they should start picking mechanic colors to be brighter colors. And just that contrast will help a lot of players see these things. This is a purplish green floor with purplish green mechanics that happen on it. And they're like barely a shade difference between the brightness of them. And it's like, okay, this is a problem, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also the lines that we're talking about are really narrow. They're not like big chunky things on the ground. They're little cracks in the pavement.
They're literally a yard.
Yeah, they're just nothing. You may notice this running into the room, but when you step over them, you get a debuff that does a minor amount of nature damage for 3 seconds. It's not notable unless you run over a lot of lines at once and stack them all up and just keep adding stacks on. So don't do that. Like, there are definitely going to be times you have to move across the floor. It's a raid boss. There's going to be movement required. Move with purpose. Move to where you want to go and stay there. And even if you don't want to be there forever, you only need to be there for 3 seconds. So that's just kind of basic sort of awareness, and prep that you want to do going into this fight.
Yeah. So since you mentioned right off the bat, I'm just going to hop into Surging Growth, which is the flowers mechanic that causes people to have to move across lines. So flowers frequently spawn around the room and deal passive raid damage. They each last 1 minute, but players can soak them to make them despawn faster. The more players, the quicker it disappears. So there are more and more flowers as the fight goes on, so you basically have to keep soaking them before you get overwhelmed. So it's balancing that, hey, how many lines do I have to cross to get to a flower? Is there someone who's closer? Try to go to the one that someone has to not run through a whole bunch of lines to get to, so that you can actually get that. And that deals a little bit with spreading your group out, as you talked about earlier, to sort of help people get more coverage on this ginormous room that you've mentioned. But yeah, Surging Growth is the one where you definitely have to cross lines to deal with. So just be prepared for doing that. And as healers, this is like a healer's dream fight. It's a bit of a nightmare, but it's also a healer's dream fight because there's always damage happening throughout the entire fight, which means you always get to be doing something to help everyone else out in the raid. It's not just waiting for someone to screw up in a big way or doing the predictable damage. This is going to be very steady damage through the whole thing, and you get to really work towards optimizing how you're going to be healing this fight and when you need to use cooldowns and how cooldowns are going to work, and you get a lot of value out of your cooldowns. So yes, that is a cool aspect about it too. All right.
Yeah, if you like healing damage, then this is the fight for you.
Is it ever? Okay, so the Verdant Matrix is actually what the lines are. So if you see the Verdant Matrix dot come up on you, that means you've crossed a line and you've gotten that dot, which lasts 3 seconds and then wears off. You'll take a little bit of damage. The more you move over it, the more you're going to actually get it. These lines are actually drawn in patterns. So technically, Nimue starts redrawing patterns at the beginning of each phase 1 because it's sort of like one of those, multi-phase fights. So you're going to see this, different patterns go up, and crossing the lines does damage. So be aware of it. Okay.
Yeah, I guess one thing I would the last kind of note on the lines on the floor, I'm pretty sure there's static patterns in like phase 1 and phase 2, like each time she resets, like you mentioned, like every time you pull it, it's going to be the same layout at first, and then she's going to alter it to the second layout second. It's not super it's not like you need to memorize these or anything. It doesn't matter that much. It's just something to be aware of, because where was a safe spot before, you may need to shift or whatever, there may be different concerns as the fight goes on and the pattern changes, but it's not the sort of mechanic that you need to be really well versed in. Like, okay, in phase 2, this thing's going to be over here, so make sure somebody goes there. Like, just pay attention to your feet, just safe positioning, and if you move, like I said, move with purpose.
Yeah. So something else that's going to cause you to have to move is probably one of my favorite named abilities of this expansion, Impending Loom, which is a play on Impending Doom, where essentially they shoot lines out is the best way to depict it. There's 2 orbs that are fired out from the boss. These orbs progressively move farther and farther apart, but they do start like 5 yards apart when they actually come out. And there's a line that joins these orbs, these 2 orbs. And they're going to shoot out like 5 lines or 6 lines, something like that. And you basically just have to dodge them. If you don't dodge them and you're hit by the line that's between the orbs or by the orbs themselves, you take a huge amount of damage and you're stunned for 3 seconds. So you have to dodge these. Ideally, you dodge them within your, lined area so that you're not running over a line to take more damage. Or by dodging them, you're using that movement to move to a flower to then soak a flower so that you're being efficient with your movement and actually, not moving and then moving again and then moving again and then getting more and more stacks of debuff. So just keep that aware. But yes, Impending Loom is definitely an ability that if people aren't paying attention, the green orbs with the green line between them traveling across the light floor with green lines that are appearing from the green floor, you might lose track of them and get hit by one of these, and it's a no-no for sure.
Yeah, I gotta say, for me personally, like, I find this mechanic to be kind of brutal. I have a hard time with this because tanks have to move a lot in this main phase. Like, you kind of main tank the boss until you get the debuff, then you got to move out and back in. And obviously, as we're talking about, there's a lot of dangerous stuff to move through and around. And these are real hard to see at first until they become so dangerous that they're hard to avoid, right? One thing that I have noticed that helps me a bit is once you see the cast go off, you'll see they look like kind of like sparks or something, and they sort of descend a little bit. And so you can see like where they pair off and where they're going to, like the angle they're going to start coming from. So that helps me a lot. Like, okay, here's the initial endpoints. I can kind of scooch between them and then I have a minute there. So that's fine if I'm in there when they're coming down. But if they're already out and going out towards the sides as I'm trying to get back in the group, that's when I have a lot of trouble avoiding all the stuff I need to avoid. And I get caught with these frequently, to be honest. I mean, on a tank, it's not super dangerous because the stun will expire before I need to pick it up from my co-tank. The damage certainly hurts, and on heroic and up, you are taking like increased nature damage in that window, or increased magic damage, I guess. So I don't want to do it, and I don't do it on purpose, but I have survived it many times. It's tough. The thing about this one is, in general, it's probably easier to avoid if you're closer because, like you said, they do like expand as they move. So you're going to have more free space the closer up near their origin point that you are. Because, yeah, by the time they get out to the end, they are really long.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned the tank debuff in there, which is Weaver's Burden. It's that dot that you get. This is the tank swap mechanic because you get a bomb placed on you, and you have to run away and blow up. And of course, since you're running away from the boss, who is an immobile boss on this fight, doesn't move around, in phase 1, you're going to have your other tank pick up the boss so that the boss is actually in range of the target it's trying to attack. So that's your tank mechanic that you were talking about. I don't think you mentioned that one a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So just making sure.
No, yeah, I sort of just glossed over it. But so the tank mechanic, Weaver's Burden is going to be cast 3 times per main phase. So just plan accordingly with cooldowns and stuff, because you're going to want one. If you're like progging this fight, you're going to want one. I mean, hell, I pretty much have at least one loaded up every time, even at this point, and I'm like 486 geared doing heroic, and it's like, this hurts really bad. But that's more on heroic specifically. On normal, it's not as bad. It's more just sort of teaching you to get away from the group with it. But it's a 12-yard circle around you, so it's pretty big.
Yep.
The initial thing that you drop is only about 4 yards or something. It grows somewhat slowly, but the initial drop gives you time to get away from it. Well, I guess, is that just on heroic as well?
No, it still explodes on normal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot less punishing on normal. what I would recommend for this is when you look at the room, like the door behind the boss, there's like gates behind the boss that lead up to the kind of portal back to the main atrium or whatever you want to call it. They have these like thorny branches like growing up over the gates that kind of, they mark like the end of the room. You got to go up in those wings there, and just kind of drop it. You can cut off like half of the circumference of the things.
Dropping it outside of the
put
fight
it through
zone.
the wall.
Yeah.
And, you keep them out of the way. That's pretty much the play with those. Now, on Heroic, this mechanic is a lot more punishing because it goes on to not only the tank, it goes on to another player as well. So you now have two people with 12-yard circles on them, okay? And they need to position appropriately, and they're going to drop Barrier Blossom on Heroic, which is basically like a Ring of Peace. It's gonna bounce you out of it if you run into it. So it's a lot of area denial when you have these other movement and positioning concerns. So one thing I do is I mark on, like with raid markers, where the ads are going to spawn, give or take, to say like, do not drop your Barrier Blossom here because we're going to be like moving over there, as part of the process going into phase 2. So if you're melee, if you can, kind of scooch up by where the tank is, up by those gates, that's usually a pretty good spot. One thing that my raiders do to me all the time that I actually I got a little upset about this week and sort of had to call people out, like, go farther than your tank. Your tank actually needs to get back faster than you do because there's going to be a swap probably really soon or some other important mechanic they need to be immediately up back with the boss for.
Right.
So if you're next to your tank, like, you better be farther away from the boss than your tank is. Please give your tank a chance to react to this and get back in position. If it can go in range players, although it seems to prefer melee, but like if you could just put it in the back of the room, if you're already back there and nobody else is really around you, fine, just drop it wherever. But yeah, if you're up front, try to get it up, on the wall that the boss is like essentially standing on, or she's basically a part of the wall, I guess. Like, she's like you said, the boss doesn't move, so put it up there somewhere. Now the tricky part, if you're doing Heroic and up, if you've been targeted with this, you will then have Woven Resonance for like a while, and you take a lot of extra nature damage, and it sucks because there's a lot of nature damage in this fight. Yeah. So after you drop this thing off, you got to be careful with because Impending Loom will be out as you're dropping this off, so you got to dodge those. You got to shimmy your way through the matrix on the ground. You got to make sure that you're not soaking Surging Growth if you have Woven Resonance. It just hurts too bad.
Don't soak the flowers.
Like, everybody else should be soaking the flowers like at all times. But if you have the debuff from Weaver's Burden, you better not stand in those flowers. Just wait until it ticks off and then soak as many of them as you can. But see, what always happens to me, where I run into trouble, is like I kind of run out of gas or run out of buttons or whatever. Like, the boss is frequently casting Viridian Rain, which is just raid-wide nature damage that you can't do anything about. It's not an area effect, whatever. It's just like a raid nuke. She's just doing this. So, yeah. I have cooldowns, but eventually stuff starts running out. So it's a lot of magic damage, and I don't have super reliable self-healing. I have a self-heal I can do once in a while when I have to be meleeing a target and I have to have rage. So, these are just some, like I said, I mean, this was the only boss we wiped on this week, and it was mostly because I died because I was not playing great. But these are the concerns that you have in main phase. I mean, overall, it probably sounds and certainly looks worse than it usually feels, to be honest, because it's a quick fight, right? You're going to hero and pot and just like nuke the boss into oblivion from the jump. So the fight's not going to last that long, but like, thank goodness, because all this stuff like ramps up throughout the fight as well. Yeah, so the longer it goes, the worse it gets. But once you get everybody comfortable with it, it's not going to live that long. Like, this is not one of the more complicated. I think actually this, from a complexity standpoint, this fight is probably simpler than Laradar,
It
who we
probably,
talked about last time.
yeah, it probably feels more like a DPS race than it does a mechanical fight in a lot of ways. There's a couple things I still want to highlight about this phase. First one is inflorescence, which is what you get after the bomb goes off. It's the trail of grass you leave in your wake, which lets you pass through lines. I feel like this had to be put in because after you explode and you take increased nature damage, you have to actually get back into position to tank, which means you might have to cross a whole bunch of lines, which if you're taking increased nature damage, you get a big dot on you, you just die. So this is the way to avoid that.
Just keep stacking those up. Yeah.
The fortunate thing is anyone who walks through this grass can pass through lines without taking damage, which means as you run back in, if other people are like, ooh, I need to go soak a flower, they can sort of like hop a ride on your trail of grass and run through a bunch of lines and not take any damage if you're looking to actually take advantage of this. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes there's areas of the room where the pattern is a little bit more intense than others. Running through that area with this on your way back might just create a shortcut or a better path for people to get to what they're trying to do. So that's a neat mechanic as well. I also want to highlight Viridian Rain, which is that regularly Nimue channels rain in the room, just deals heavy, wide nature damage. So just keep that in mind of like, hey, healers, you're going to be timing out cooldowns around Viridian Rain. Be sure you have everything lined up to sort of, pound out some healing during that window. And then of course Continuum is the last thing, which is a 10-second channel. At the start of phase 1, Nimue draws new lines across the floor that deal heavy raid-wide damage over 10 seconds. And while Nimue redraws, there are no lines in the room. So this is your chance to sort of reposition, take advantage. So if you've gotten split off from your spot or your area or whatever it is, something displaced you while this continuum is happening is, okay, let's reposition and get into position so that we're ready for the next thing. So just keep that in mind with the phase 1 stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that overall, to put a period on phase 1, like if you're stepping in here as somebody who's just trying to figure out what's happening in the fight, and you're just trying to do a good job or whatever, if you're not like leading the group or making decisions about assignments or whatever, the number one thing you should try to focus on is surging growth and soaking those flowers. Like that's how you can help your team the most. Just like those things can't be ignored. And the faster you can get rid of them, the better, and your healers will thank you for it. So if you're just looking for some way to contribute to the group as you kind of, figure out the fight, prioritize soaking, surging growth. If you're doing it on heroic, just don't do it if you just got Weaver's Burden.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
If you do that and you're just sort of like, just trying to contribute to the team, I think that's like the biggest thing that will help you get over the hump with surviving phase 1 into phase 2. And if you could do that like once or twice, then you probably win.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is what Jason calls an A-B fight, because there's 2 phases to it and you go back and forth between them. Because at 100 energy, Nimue becomes immune and summons 2 triads, which you mentioned at the very beginning. And that's triads, not triads. And on opposite sides of the room. And so you need to actually deal with these ads because Nimue causes explosions around itself when summoning the ads, and tanks need to get hit by it to gain inflorescence, which is the grass on the ground, to allow the raid to cross the lines to get to the ads to be able to DPS the ads. This is where you, of course, have split your group in half, and each group goes to one side of the room to kill their ad. When both are dead, you start phase 1 again. So this is the like, hey, let's coordinate in this. It's a second phase, but it's more like an intermission before you go back into phase 1. So yeah, this is the start of that phase. Is there anything you want to highlight at the start of that phase?
Full bloom.
Sure,
you don't want to be in that unless you're one of the tanks. It should just go on the 2 tanks and that's it. So it's weird because it's very rapid fire, right? Like boss hits 100 energy. It's a timer. There's nothing that's like feeding the boss energy. It's just a timer. Timer fills up and now full bloom goes out.
And that's the thing that generates the grass, just so everyone's clear as to what's happening. Yeah.
And that 16-yard circle is pretty big. Like if you're meleeing, you need to actually leave because you need to be outside of that arc. Just keep that in mind, and then follow your tank into the ad on your assigned side because the tank will have the inflorescence and you can safely move wherever you want to go behind them. You can run over as many lines as you need to or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that it's the timing on that is real tricky, and again, that's why I don't really like the fact that they put full bloom as like the first thing in stage 2, because I think of it as the last thing in stage 1. This is where the Weaver's Burden positioning and resetting comes in, because the tank who gets that third Weaver's Burden per phase A is really going to need to get back in position quickly to pick up that full bloom. So give your tank a lane, take yourself an extra, a few yards out of the way or whatever, so that everybody can reposition and do their jobs, and then everybody will be happy. Other than that, yeah, same thing applies as when you walk in and there's the trash. Like, probably don't range interrupt these things, because you don't want them walking over the lines. Yeah. Run up to them, interrupt them, and then I don't think they take any damage until they get interrupted. So hit them with an interrupt and then start burning them down.
Yep, they do a couple abilities. Lumbering Slam, which is a frontal that you're going to have to dodge, does heavy damage. So basically it turns in a direction and then raises its arms, and there's a big brown Earth's going to explode pattern on the ground that you want to dodge, and that'll then go off. There's another one called Radial Flourish, which is our Sylvanas patterns are back again with the exploding swirlies. Basically, the boss will spawn out this like star pattern almost of swirlies that explodes. So you want to just dodge that. So that you're, safe as far as that goes. While the triad's alive, you have ramping raid damage happening every 3 seconds. So you want to be sure you're actually killing the ads off as fast as possible, because otherwise you're just sitting in that phase for too long and you just die from the stacking damage from Unravel. As well as Verdant Rend, where if a tree crosses a line, the raid takes massive raid damage, and damage taken doubles every time it happens. So you might get away with one oopsie, but you're not going to get away with 2. So just keep that in mind when it comes to this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's that phase. When both trees die, you go back to phase 1, which we already covered. So you do that until hopefully you kill the boss.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, there's not a lot of nuance to phase 2 or phase B. Other than, again, the positioning for full bloom. On heroic, you will get surging growths to spawn while you're fighting the triads. So you still need to soak them. If there's a surging growth out, you need somebody soaking it. So it can be tough in this phase because there is a lot of area denial and it's unpredictable because the tree kind of spins around and does its cone. And then there's the other, the swirlies and whatever else,
where people have dropped bombs from earlier is still there. You still got the circles from those.
Yeah, it can get kind of messy. So there are going to be times where, like, you can't safely soak a surging growth for a bit, which is why it's very important to soak as much as you can, because keep in mind these things are pulsing raid wide damage the whole time they're ignored. There are going to be times where you have no choice but to ignore one because you can't safely stand in its circle, but you need to stand in them as much as you can. The only other thing I would point out here, and I've actually run into this problem sometime, like once or twice, you do want like a fairly even DPS split here because you need to kill these two at about the same time. They are shielding the boss, so the boss is not taking any damage during this phase. It's not like you can just ignore them and tunnel the boss and, the boss is at 10%, just burn the boss. Like, no, you can't do that. We've had pulls where, like, one side's tree dies way faster than the others, and then people just go to the middle and wait. Like, don't do that. Go help your team out. You are again, like you mentioned, you're taking ramping raid damage the whole time. If there's a tree alive, like, spin your camera around, make sure both ads are dead, and then, collapse the group back down to the boss, pop some raid cooldowns, pop some AMZs or whatever, and just keep burning. Then you go back to phase A. So I don't know. Like, there isn't a lot going on mechanically in this fight, but there is some nuance and there's some stuff that if you ignore it, like, it will be punishing, and if you emphasize it, it'll give you that advantage to cleaning this up and winning the fight. It's a cool fight. I wish that a couple of the mechanics read a little bit better. Like, Impending Loom is the one that I always struggle with, and I get caught with way more than I should. I like the design of it overall. I like the theming.
I wish it was bright red or purple,
or just have like a harder edge on it or something. Like, put something on the floor that I can, like, okay, I can't, my camera was kind of sideways, so I thought it was safe, but I was actually right in the thing. Put a harder edge on it or an outline on the floor, and make it stand out a bit more. And then I would still probably get caught with it a bunch because it happens. I'm a human, and I'm like a somewhat average player probably. So it happens. Like, you're gonna get hit with mechanics. That's why they put them in the fights, right? Like, if every fight was just about like kill the boss before he kills you, like, that gets old. But sometimes I feel like I can't play around what this fight is asking me to do because I have like 3 bad choices, and it's like,
right.
Well, I don't know. I guess I just have to pick the one that seems the least bad. But I mean, other than that, this is like a burn fight. Like, you are just nuking this boss, and maybe once in a while, most players in the raid have to move like 8 yards to pick up a surging growth, and then you go about your business. So that's really all there is to it.
Yeah. Okay. With that, let's take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us, create and improve on the content that we have going on. This is actually, like I said, all the bills just came out. January 1st is when all the yearly stuff renews. So my credit card just got all the charges, which is very nice to be able to go, okay, let's look at the Patreon fund. Let's see what we can cover with this, which makes me very happy. So thank you so much to all of you who keep the show going. I'm sorry about the schedule change stuff that's been going on, but we'll settle into something a little bit more steady over the next few months, I imagine, because it looks like it's going to be evening records, and we'll have to pick one, and we'll try and stick to it and make sure it gets out regularly. So that's going to be great. So big thank you to that. And I'm going to give a special shout out today to Aliana, Sarajian, Celian, James, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, Rager, and Vespin. Thank you so much for everything you give. You giving on that tier is something that we appreciate and why you get read on the show. And then everyone else who also supports the show, we appreciate you in all the ways that you do it. If you're trying to find the Patreon, it's located at patreon.com/thestartingzone, where you can hop on over there. No new patrons this week, but we appreciate everyone who gives and supports the show. And you can hop on over there and sign up to support and help us create the content and pay the bills and keep making the show. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons, for all your support. I mean, it's been a great year for the show, for WoW, for the Patreon support. If you visited thestartingzone.com lately, thank a patron. Thank you, patrons, for letting us keep our stuff online. I mean, it's not free, and so we do this because we love doing it, and having some help along the way means a lot. So thank you for helping us out.
Yeah. The other way to support our show that we always appreciate is leaving us a 5-star review, and we're still working our way through some of the ones that got submit, but we will get to yours soon. Man, oh man, I love that we got actually more than one for an episode. Like, I love that we can just read out more and more reviews every show. That's what I want. I want reviews on every episode. I want to double up reviews on episodes. Just keep them coming in, because it boosts us up those charts. It helps more people find our podcast, and it really helps us out. So we appreciate it. This one's from Mikey Learns Italian. Entitled My Favorite Podcast. And it says, I've been listening to this podcast for a long time now, and I always enjoy the practical discussion that Spencer and Jason have around the game and the tips that they offer on a week-to-week basis. They help me understand what is worth spending my time on to make the most out of my time that I have to play the game. I'm a father with a pretty demanding job, so finding time is tough, but when I do, I am more prepared and can make the most of my time that I have. I've played off and on since Wrath, and have dove into Dragonflight. It's been great, and I look forward to listening to the show every week on my commute. Warrior main for life. I hear you, Mikey, and I appreciate that not only are you learning Italian, but you are listening and learning more about World of Warcraft to optimize your time. And man, thank you so much for the review. It means a lot. It really does. So I appreciate you, and I hope you continue enjoying the show and it makes your commute better.
Absolutely. Thanks for writing in and taking the time. It's super appreciated. And yes, Warrior mains, of course. I feel like, I don't know, there's something about Warrior mains. It's a certain kind of person, we connect with each other on some level. I don't know. It's like everybody else has their magic spells and their cool powers, and we just have our weapons and our whatever we can hold.
And your rage.
And that's just the way we like it, right? So we love that stuff. So it's always cool to hear from other lifelong Warrior mains. And I think WoW has done a better job over recent years. I know it's a goal of theirs to respect players' time investment and to give people more rewarding and interesting stuff to do with smaller time investments. But it can still be pretty tough to navigate.
Dude,
I mean, we hear that about
Dragonflight icons
all
on
the
your
time.
map inside Dragonflight. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I think it's a learning process for the developers as well. Like, how do we include all this stuff that we want to do, or like give people a lot of options, but also make it something they can navigate? And I think that's something that's an area where they need to learn and iterate and come up with some new stuff. In our case, it gives us nice jumping off points for discussions about, how we approach that stuff, or like what might be confusing or what might not be worth it. What at this point in time, now that this expansion's been out for a year plus, like which things are good to do and which things are outdated, and that's stuff the game's not going to explicitly tell you. So that's why we like to highlight that stuff here.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap up episode 612 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter at The Starting Zone, or you can join our Discord at thestartingzone.com/Discord and have all the conversation that's happening there. If you want to get your hands on some TSZ gear, you can find that on TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/The Starting Zone, where you can check out the designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and that kind of fun stuff. And if you're trying to find Jason, where can they do that on the internets?
Best place to find me is always over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. I always talk whenever I'm doing in and around WoW and stuff. You can find me streaming sometimes over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald and or youtube.com/Shieldwald. Usually Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Sundays. I didn't stream over the holidays, and then I streamed on Tuesday, and the ISP got really mad at me after about an hour. And the previous few streams have been good, and I was like, okay, well, maybe stuff is better. It's not better. So I don't know. I didn't try to stream last night because it was a low energy situation and high pressure with trying to do mythic stuff. But maybe I'll try to stream tomorrow for BFD, because that's pretty low pressure. So I don't know. Check out the video channels, and we'll see if we can keep them going this year.
Great. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and job's done.